So we're going to talk about a whole bunch of longsword guards. Not all of them, mind you, but some of the more commonly used ones. First one, we're going to start at the top. What do we got? We've got high guard, or in German,
Vom Tag.
Vom Tag.
Which can be either from the roof or from the day, depending on the interpretation and translation.
That is correct. So high guard is held above the head, or depending on the cutting angle, could be above either shoulder. However, we don't like to hold it here. This is not our interpretation of Vom Tag. When I say in the manual it says you can hold it above either shoulder, it actually means it doesn't have to be directly above the head. It can be either side, here or here, depending on your cutting angle.
You can reasonably, arguably, do it from here. There's some issues with that. I personally don't like that either. Yeah, exactly. It's exposed, but there are different interpretations. Okay, fine, but we prefer this one.
Mm-hmm. So high guard is good for one thing especially, but it can do a whole bunch more. And that, of course, is a downward cut. It's almost like it's set up for that. You don't need to move to another guard position, it's just there. You can cut to either side, and there's really nothing wrong with throwing a downward cut from high guard.
Next one is ox guard, or German ox, just spelled differently. And this, at least according to our interpretation, is not a guard that you just stay in for really long periods of time. This is mainly the parry. So it can be on either side, either on the left or the right side, and this is mainly used against a downward cut. So if I want to cut him and he doesn't want to have that, there it is. And also note here the point is threatening me. He does not want to do it like this, because now the point doesn't do anything and I'm free to do whatever I want. Which I'm not if it's pointing at my face.
So a lot of people do ox in a different way. Our interpretation is having the arms out to the side, above your head, so that they're protecting everything. I've seen a lot of people do ox here, creating what we like to call the chicken wing. This is not a very good biomechanical position. The overly flexed wrist, not so good. Nice straight wrist position, relaxed elbow, good shoulder position, biomechanically strong.
Now here he's actually supporting that with his skeletal structure, not just with his muscles, and the blade is far away from his head. Here, if he goes further down, he doesn't have as much strength here, because this is just the muscles at a compromised position. He cannot use his skeletal structure, and it's so much closer to your head, so if something hits and you don't absorb it all the way, this may still hit you in the face.
A funny thing you can do is, if you go to open ox for a second, now Skall has some really good structure here. I weigh over 200 pounds, and I can put a lot of weight on there and he's still able to hold it. But if he goes to a broken wrist position, nope, it's pretty easy to pull down.
Different sides. There are a lot of different interpretations for this guard, possibly more than for most of the other guards. So there's a lot of disagreement. Again, that's the way Blood Iron does it.
Next up, Wrath.
Or Zorn in German.
So Wrath guard is a very aggressive guard position. You can do a lot of things from it. It's pretty much as versatile as high guard. But one thing it's really useful is the Wrath cut, or Zornhau, which is an aggressive cut that can break through someone's line of attack. Now, one thing about Zorn is your sword isn't in front of you, between you and your opponent. That being said, if I stand in Wrath, do you want to advance in on this at all? No, you don't. Especially with a big passing step. I have loads of reach and I can generate a lot of force with this.
There are also, again, variations on this. You can lean more or less. The Italian version, I think, is pretty retracted.
Posta di donna.
Yeah, so there are different ways in which you can do it. One thing to keep in mind, don't stick the elbow out, because that's a target. Now, this is very exaggerated, but it's best to keep it as close to the body as you can. Next up, long point or Longsword. So this is a pretty popular guard. You see that a lot. Particularly beginners like to use that because the kind of fighter that is referred to above iron as wigglers. They just want to stick the point in your face and then wiggle it around and move a lot. So this is a way to keep the blade between yourself and the opponent. So if you're worried about what the opponent does and you don't want them to advance on you, there it is. So this feels the safest, particularly compared to Wrath. How safe do you feel in Wrath?
I mean, I feel pretty safe, but that's just me.
But, you know, you're still long point in comparison. So from long point, of course, you can thrust very easily. And also this is, you go through long point when you throw a cut. Cut starts, high guard, for example, goes through long point and ends up in change. And so this is just a transitional guard as well as a guard that you can use to stop somebody who's aggressively advancing on you. If there's somebody who just keeps coming at you, throwing one thing after the other, this is a good way to make them rethink, particularly if you point at their face, they may just stop and go, oh, I don't want this.
Quick side note though, in MS 133, the Sword and Buckler Manual, all the cuts are described as ending in long point rather than passing through it. Interesting thing to note.
And you can do that deliberately with longsword as well. If I just do a long point, I could slip under and go for a thrust. For example.
So here we have plow, or in German,
Flug.
Flug.
Don't catch the flug. To that side.
So plow is another point forward guard. I like to refer to it as the hedgehog of guards, not because it's particularly quick, but because it's pointy. This guard in particular seems to say, back off, I'm spiky.
So similar to long point, except that it's more retracted.
One of the things you can do from plow really easily is transition to thrusts or cuts like a zwirk or a shield.
Next up, Fool's Guard or Alba. This is a guard, depending on how you interpret it, it's either a guard that's foolish to assume because it doesn't protect you, apparently, or it's foolish to attack this because
it's a trap!
It's a trap, exactly. So, or it just looks foolish, and you may think that. His head is completely exposed, the blade doesn't actually do anything to protect him, or so it seems. If I throw a cut, he has a variety of options that he can do.
One thing I like to do when fighting from fools is throw a thrust. All you really have to do is rise up from fools to long point. So you gather in and step, and you can get a lot of distance. This can make some fighters pretty nervous.
And that's about it. So, as I said, there are more guards, and there's a lot more to talk about, and plenty of different interpretations, but yeah, this is just what we want to talk about for today, just so you get a general idea if you're new to HEMA, or just are interested in historical sword fighting. There you go. Hope you liked it, and thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna end you.
You're gonna end me.
Rightly.
Wrongly. Okay, what the fuck? I will end you if you don't stop.
But I love dancing.
You have cancer?
No! I love dancing!
Except you said dancing like you're from, you know, the Bronx.
Ew.
Then we're gonna...
Smash it.
Yeah, I'm short. Get over it.
Easily.
Okay, that's fair. Fuck off. No, fuck off!
Alright, let's talk about guards. They're pretty handy. Basically, defensive... That's stupid.
They're kind of handy, guys.
Yeah, I like them.
High guard, or in German,
In German,
fuck guard.
the fuck guard in German.
Go.
Guards. It says
That's a good way to start again. Guards.
Start from.
guards. Guards. They stole my sweet roll.